How y'all are? This is Moon Griffon, the Moon Griffon Podcast. Appreciate you joining us today as we rock and roll, of course, in a situation around the world and the country now, and people getting their anxiety up in the banking business. I've welcomed back a friend of mine who's been in the banking business for 50 years with ties with Washington and things of that nature, and a stock exchange, and his name is Rusty Cloutier. He's been, like I said, in the banking business for a long time. He kind of gets what's going on. Rusty, first of all, good to talk to you, man. Hope you're doing well.
I'm doing great, Moon. Life is good. I'm enjoying it. Things are good.
Hey, you can tell, folks, he's retired. That's why he can say that. I gotta go. But that's okay. I enjoy doing it. Rusty, let's do this for the folks that are joining us. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the banking business. I know we had some failures, but I want to talk about the good, bad, and the ugly. But I want to talk about the good because I don't want anybody to panic. So let's just start there. What you see going on in the banking business, and I don't think it's a time to panic. But let's visit about that. What do you think?
Well, look, the basic community banking system in America is fine. It always has been. It was good in 2008. It was good in 1980. And now, if you want to talk about Wall Street, that's a whole different story. But they want to try to convince you to get out of your local owned bank where you see your guy at church every Sunday, and you can go talk to the president and go with Jamie Dimon or BlackRock or some of these other deals that you go to. Like in 2008, I'm sure you would love to have your money in Merrill Lynch or Lehman Brothers or whatever. Okay. They love to say they're too big to fail. The reason they're too big to fail is the bureaucrats bail them out. Okay. I guarantee you this bank that failed, Silicon Bank, got bailed out because it had all those woke deposits and it had a lot of green energy money in it. And it had woke leadership, and it was all on their terms.
Yep.
But if that had been a bank in rural Nebraska, rural Iowa, or anywhere else, rural Louisiana, they would have no more cared about it than flying to the moon, okay? So they care about what they care about, and I don't think there is a risk here. And the risk of the big banks, the risk is exactly opposite of what they're talking about. The risk is the Chase and Citicorp and the big institutions, because those are international banks, Moon, and they are very loaned out to China and Russia and Ukraine and Venezuela and Brazil and all of that. I guarantee you, your local bank in your local community ain't got no loans to Venezuela, Honduras, any other foreign country. Okay?
Yeah, so it becomes more of a national deal with the big banks.
Yeah, it does. And they want to convince you, we're the safe place to go. We're the safe place to go because the government can bail us out. Well, how much can the government bail them out? And that's the problem is, today, the day we're talking on, is that, they raised rates a quarter of a point. And the market was okay when they raised it a quarter of a point. And then Powell got up there and started talking about what he wanted to do. And all of a sudden, the market closed down over 500 points. Wow. And the banks, all of them, went to hell. And, that's the problem. And it's a very, very bad problem. And it's an international problem. It has nothing to do with the local bank in your local community. If you live in Arkansas, Little Rock, or Texarkana, or someplace like that, it's got nothing to do with that.
Well, let me ask you a question. I want people to understand why you keep mentioning the local bank and how the local bank is so important, because also, Rusty, I'm reading and talking to people like you, the goal of the Biden administration, some of these regulators, is really to get rid of local banks because they can all get big banks, kind of like COVID with the hospitals. Federal government told everybody what to do because they sending the money. It looks like they want to really wipe out the small bank. How do they wipe out the small bank? What can they do to wipe out the small bank? What's going on right now that concerns you about the small bank? I mean, if I deal with a small bank, I invest in a small bank, my money's in a small bank, I feel good about it. I'm not running and doing anything. But why do you think it's so dangerous with what they're doing, dealing with the small banks, trying to wipe them out?
Well, here's what they want to have happen. They would love to have a run on the small banks, okay? and just cause it and say, look, for the good of the country, we're going to consolidate all these banks into Chase or Citicorp or whatever, and then make a national currency that is controlled by the big banks. I mean, remember, all of these people are tied at the hip. They all totally agree with each other on how to do things. So I am telling you right now, that's where they are. That's what they want to have happen. And American people can't let that happen. They will continue trying to panic you into saying, well, go run to your local bank, take all the money out, and go bring it to Chase. Okay? And I mean, it will kill a local bank. It's like me saying, don't go eat at Chick-fil-A for 2 months. Chick-fil-A would be out of business in 2 months if they didn't have anybody eating there,
Yeah, it's just a big concern because, like you said, I'm not running to my small bank. I'm not going to get anything from them. I'm just going to continue my daily banking. And that's what people need to understand. Remember, I like to laugh at this, Rusty. I've talked to you about this before, but, when COVID came, we had to run on toilet paper. And I got to tell you, I don't know why they had to run on toilet paper when COVID came. I'm still trying to figure out the toilet paper keeper. So if I don't understand toilet paper, it's hard to understand the banking too, because I'm going, why do you want to do this to your country?
Yeah, well, they're convinced. Look, first of all, you got to remember, these are all controlled by the far left universities, okay? All right? They're way out there. Now, they are really, really woke. And they believe that on the East and West Coast, that those people do not have the capability of knowing what they know. They're so much smarter than we are.
Yeah,
okay?
Right.
All right? And so they got to come rescue you from your little bank and put everything in Chase, okay? And then tell you what you can do and what you can't do, okay? Just tell you what your ability to do things and whatever, and totally control your life.
Yeah.
Okay. That's where they really had it. It's got nothing to do about the soundness of the banking business.
You wrote a book, Big Bank, Too Big to Fail. I don't. Did I get the title right?
Big Bad Bank.
Yeah, Big Bad Bank. That's the part of it. Big Bad. And by the way, I suggest you read it, Rusty. That book that you wrote back then, does this important today like it was then when you wrote the book? Is it that important? Well, can you read your book? I'm asking people to go read your book because I think it's important today. Is it important today like it was back in the day, back in 2008?
Maybe even more. As you know, the subtitle is named How Greed and Corruption Affected the Banking Crisis of 2008.
Yes, sir.
It's the exact same thing today, Moon. I mean, they were all concerned about Silicon Bank because it was all green energy, and about Chinese deposits, and about all the money from the infrastructure bill that went in there. People may not realize, but at the end of 2018, Silicon Bank was $41 billion in assets. When they closed, it was $212 billion.
Wow.
Okay, they grew it like crazy, and they grew it all with government deposits, indirect government deposits to green startup companies and Chinese money. And so, but they want to get you all concerned about that. It's just like with this Credit Suisse deal that they were all worried about on the weekend. That, they were saying, oh, we got to be concerned. Well, Switzerland and Netherlands was the big pusher of green energy. And that's why they were in trouble. But I guarantee you, Moon, where you live out in the country, that wasn't going to affect you one iota. But they wanted to make a big deal out of it, but they don't make a big deal out of North Dakota getting destroyed by not having fracking anymore, or Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Texas, what's happened there. Those ain't big deals to them, but it's a big deal if it affects their agenda.
Rusty, since you're talking about the banking business and the Green New Deal, I'm not going to take you to the ESGs and all that because that's another crazy thing. But they're doing all this all over the world. They're doing this in parts of this country now. And when you see these banks go down and they were a big part of the Green New Deal and the government's coming back them up, does that mean that investment in these banks that got these investments and stuff like this and people's money on this Green New Deal, does that mean that's failing? Does that mean that's not going to work? That mean the government's going to keep propping it up because it really is a failure? I think it's a total lie. I think it's communism. That's me, not you. I think it's a total lie. But is that really going? It's failing. Remember Solyndra and all of them. I mean, they failed. They were going so quick it wasn't even funny. They think they got the money now because they printed all this money all over the world, especially here. Is that mean that investment is really going to be devastating one day to us?
Absolutely. I mean, look,
I think so too.
I can tell you, I served on the Fed's Energy Committee for 6 years, and we studied all of this. And as long as natural gas is cheap, the rest of that can't compete without a federal subsidy. Okay? Let me give you another great example. They don't want no drilling anywhere due to the economy, but they put up windmills in the Atlantic, which is killing all the fish, okay, and killing everything. But they don't want to talk about that. Yeah, I mean, look, it's crazy. You put money into things that is losing money. You don't know when it's ever.
But let me stop you, Rusty. We're being forced to do this when all the other stuff works fine. But see, that's under the guise of we got to save the planet. I just want to see them do one thing to affect a hurricane. I want to see them do one thing to stop a tornado. I want to see them do one thing to stop a drought or a flood. And none of this does this. Well, you're not saving the planet. They built up the biggest lie, the communistic lie, and we ought to not. And that's what I liked about Trump. He didn't buy into this. He got out of the Paris Accord. That was smart. But these people are just driving it down. When it blows up in our face, where do you turn then?
Well, let me tell you, Moon, I'll tell you from the banking, and I'll talk about banking that I know in the area I live. Right now, you could not make an oil and gas loan. They would be all over you, the regulators. Howard just said the regulators could be more aggressive. They're going to curtail credit. But you got to get a good GSE score, and you got to get a good score on your HR, on your identity politics, okay?
Wow.
I mean, they want you to put people on the board that don't have a clue of what you do in the banking business if you can meet the agenda requirements. Okay?
But hold up now. So, is this come to the small banks too?
It's coming. It came to everybody. Okay?
My God.
The SEC is pushing all that crap.
Yeah.
Okay? And so, you got it to where, and he don't talk about it, and the government don't talk about it, but Silicon Valley Bank said they were pushing a great GSE score and a great identity score, and that's what they were going after because that's what the regulators wanted them to go after, okay? And these people who say, well, the regulators really weren't telling them to do, I say BS, okay? The regulators push you into doing stuff or they'll kill you. And for Powell to stand up today and act like, well, we didn't really tell them much. We don't tell banks much. They kind of do what they want. That's such a lie. He's covering for his woke president.
But Rusty, when all this, because of Biden, and I put Obama as much as anybody in this, but when it falls, Rusty, the United States falls. You older than me. I've always said, I'm going to make this comment. I've told you the same thing. One of the reasons that the United States of America has been great, besides the grace of God, I mean that first. The second thing is cheap energy means cheap food. Cheap energy means plenty of food. Cheap energy means we can fight a war. We can travel all over this country. We can go to work. We can defend ourselves. And cheap food means people can eat. If you don't have cheap energy and you don't have cheap food, you're already screwed. Well, with this inflation, what's going on now with the banks and inflation got people nervous as can be. And then the energy prices are skyrocketing. They're still high, and they're high because of all the stuff I just told you is high because of the Green New Energy deal, and people need to wake up to what's going on. And if all the banks collapse because of this, there's somebody out there saying, bring on the crypto. Let's go with the crypto. And you don't want that. That's China. That's communism.
Well, and government control everything. And let me tell you, all this is being pushed and has been pushed. Hell, I retired 6 years ago, and before I retired, bankers were already being told, you better not have an oil and gas loan on your books, okay? I mean, the regulators were devastating on this stuff. And but I guarantee you one thing. They will pursue the management at Silicon Valley and Silvergate and all these other banks, and I'm not saying they shouldn't, but I bet you whatever you want, Moon, and hear your listeners, that they will never go after a regulator. And you can't tell me a bank that closes, on Wednesday afternoon and it starts trading at 3:11, at 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon, and it shut down 9 o'clock. 3 o'clock Wednesday is trading at 3:11. Mm-hmm. And on Friday, it's closed at 9 in the morning. You can't tell me that happened that fast. You just, no way.
No,
they knew it was coming.
I think they knew it was coming, but they won't be honest about these investments in stuff that is fake. Rusty, putting carbon capture and putting it in the ground is one of the dumbest things in the world unless you're making money. If you're making money, it's all cool. And the federal government's sending it. I'm seeing some of the oil companies buy into it. But why? Well, they've got stockholders and they got people that want to make money. So if they're saying, hey, federal government's going to give us $20 million, $100 million, $500 million, $1 billion, what do y'all want to do? Whatever they want us to do, take the $1 billion because that's a bonus for me and it's a bonus for you and we can get our stockholders happy. And I understand business. Okay, I understand it enough to know you don't turn down that money. But in the big picture, in the long run, Rusty, this is going to devastate us because I say all the time, they got the health care now, okay? They've been having the school systems. There ain't but a couple of things left, banking and energy. And they working on both of them right now, and they tied together. That ought to scare people. And I'm not trying to scare people, but that ought to worry people that we have nobody in Washington, D.C. looking out for us when it comes to energy and banking. And when I say none, I know there's some people fighting. I'm not being foolish, but apparently there's not enough people that could do something about it they're not stepping up and being counted for.
Yeah, well, let me just ask you this question. On everything that happens in Washington and in every state in America, and I'm just talking about Louisiana, every state in America, do you ever know when a federal bureaucrat gets fired because they messed up? Ever?
No.
Ever.
Never announced.
And it ain't never done. They might be moved to another job.
Yeah. They probably in this world, they probably moved up, got paid more.
Yeah, they might have moved up. But Moon, look, here's my message to American people. Stay in your community bank. You've always been safe. You're always going to know what's going on. Let me tell you, you're going to have a whole lot better idea of what shape your community bank is. Because you're going to church with all the people.
Sure.
And they work at that bank. You're friends with some of them because their kids play sports with yours. You're going to know if that bank's got some problems long before you're going to hear about Chase Manhattan in trouble or Lehman Brothers. Nobody called you when Lehman Brothers was in trouble.
No.
Or Merrill Lynch.
Not at all.
They didn't call you from Washington and say, look, you need to be looking at this. So the community bank is the place you want to be. And you're right. They're after the chemical industry now. They're after banking. They're after all these things.
Yeah.
It's just a real problem.
Rusty, it's not just in Louisiana. It's going all over. In the little state we live, they went after oil and gas industry. They went after tobacco. Then they got all the money they get from them. Then they went after oil and gas. They run everything out of here. And now they're after the chemical plants, which I predicted they would do because the lawyers need somebody else to sue. And but I'll go back to what you said. I think if the people will stay with the small banks, stick with them, I think they'll be better off. I don't believe in panicking anytime. I just don't believe in panicking anytime. And I think you need to stay grounded in who you are and what you do. And I appreciate your positive on the community banks. Anybody watching this, and I hope a bunch of people get to see this edition of the Moon Griffon Show podcast, because I think the Moon Griffon podcast, they will be, when they listen to you, they're going to get an idea of what's going on, and it'll be cool. Just calm down.
That's it.
All right, Rusty Cloutier, thank you so much. Make sure you check it out.
My pleasure, Moon.
Thank you, sir. And make sure you check us out. Yes, sir. The Moon Griffon podcast. And I want to make sure you subscribe. Please subscribe. Tell a friend. They don't want to miss this edition of the Moon Griffon podcast. A lot of information here today. God bless. We'll see you next time.